Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Kelly Gossie with the National Weather Service in Tallahassee. We're just a little past our 9:30 start time. I'm going to go ahead and mute all the audio throughout the call.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
Especially as we're getting closer to impacts with this system, please try to mute your lines throughout the call so that we can address questions at the end of this briefing and give people the information that they need. If you do need to have immediate conversations after the call, please drop off lines so that we can have good audio for our question and answer session. So with that, here we go on the morning briefing for Hurricane Michael. Latest indications that we received from the Hurricane Center at 8 a.m. is that Michael is continuing to strengthen and is now a Category 2 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 100 miles an hour. We have planes in the storm at this point, continuing to assess the intensity of Michael. Signs are continuing to indicate that the storm will strengthen further. We expect Michael to be a major hurricane later this evening and also be a major hurricane at landfall on Wednesday with maximum sustained winds in the 115 to 125 mile an hour range. That's a strong Category 3. Hurricane warnings remain in effect for much of the region. Tropical storm warnings surround the hurricane warning area in portions of south central Georgia. Tropical storm conditions will begin to affect the area as soon as tonight along the Florida Panhandle coast, with hurricane conditions beginning as early as Wednesday morning along the Florida Panhandle coast. In the briefing, I'll kind of walk you all through some timelines on when we expect conditions to start for other areas. Again, we are looking at a significant and life-threatening storm surge threat with this storm, particularly in Appalachia Bay, but also in portions of the Florida Panhandle. Again, we'll walk through the storm surge threat because it is heavily track dependent. Locally heavy rainfall is also expected, which will cause flash flooding starting on Wednesday across the region. So here is the latest forecast that we've had as of 5 a.m. this morning. We've had just some very subtle shifts east and west. Yesterday there was a nudge to the west. This morning there was a nudge to the east. We're about where we were yesterday. The next forecast update that comes out in about an hour or so, we may see just, again, a slight little nudge, a little bit to the west or east, but not enough at this point where we want people to think, well, we're out of it. We're expecting significant impacts across the entire region with this storm. It's continuing to strengthen, and we see this coming ashore as a major hurricane. Hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings remain in effect for most of the area. Remember, the cone is where the center is likely to be. It is not an impact cone. We're going to see impacts well away from the center of Hurricane Michael. It's going to spread over our entire forecast area, so we need folks to be prepared for that. As you can see here, Michael has continued to move off to the north-northwest. It's located just about due south of Apalachicola at this point. We are going to see a little bit more of a motion off to the north-northwest today, but that's going to turn a little bit more back to the north as we get into the evening and particularly into the day on Wednesday. We could see a slight slowdown in forward speed today. If we see that, that's going to kind of shift our impacts a little bit, but it also means we're going to see the storm move a little bit further to the east as it goes through our area. Again, this satellite photo shows a very intense hurricane here with strong convection all the way around it. You see the eyes starting to poke out. All signs are pointing to continued strengthening with this system. As far as wind speed probabilities, there's a near certainty of tropical storm conditions across our region, essentially from I-75 west. It's almost a certainty these areas will get sustained tropical storm force winds. It's about an 8 in 10 chance as you go down into Dixie County. But as you see most of the area here in this purple shading, it's almost assured that you're getting sustained tropical storm force winds. As far as hurricane probabilities, these have continued to increase considerably along the Florida Panhandle coast and in portions of the Florida Big Bend. There is now a 4 in 5 chance of seeing sustained hurricane conditions for points along the coast from Panama City to Apalachicola. Then about a 1 in 2 chance of hurricane conditions across interior portions of the Florida Panhandle, westward or eastward from Washington County over to Leon County, as well into portions here of southwestern Georgia, like Decatur and Seminole County. Then about a 1 in 3 chance of seeing sustained hurricane force winds as far inland as Albany and Dothan, Alabama. Now, in terms of time of arrival of the tropical storm force winds, The earliest reasonable time frame where we might see these conditions begin are plotted on the screen. So reaching the Florida Panhandle coast perhaps as early as 8 p.m. Eastern Time this evening, and spreading into southwestern Georgia as early as 2 a.m. on Wednesday. More likely, however, we'll see these conditions reach the coast right after midnight on Wednesday morning across the Florida Panhandle and get into southwestern Georgia, southeastern Alabama around 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. Based on our current track and the way the system is moving, we anticipate that tropical storm conditions would come to an end late Wednesday evening or right around midnight across North Florida and begin to improve and exit the area by daybreak or shortly thereafter across southwestern Georgia and into portions of southeast Alabama. As far as the overall wind threat, this is an extreme wind threat for areas in the Florida Panhandle and in portions of the western Florida Big Bend. Areas in purple need to prepare for Category 2 winds and gusts of Category 3 intensity. This does extend into portions of southwestern Georgia and southeastern Alabama. The area in red needs to prepare for Category 1 hurricane force winds in gusts. So we do anticipate that we will see gusts to hurricane force as far inland as Albany, perhaps even further north to our far northern tier counties across our border with Peachtree City. So again, prepare for significant wind impacts in the red and purple areas. In the orange areas, strong tropical storm force winds will still cause significant and lengthy power outages. So wind is a major impact with this particular system. So our current watches and warnings at this point in time, hurricane warnings are in this lighter red color here that extends all the way up Worth, Dougherty, Calhoun County, and then back down. The counties here in this purple color are under hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings. We're going to evaluate here over the next couple of hours if we need to upgrade a portion of this watch area to a hurricane warning. And then tropical storm warnings are in effect for our I-75 Georgia counties and then into the interior portions of the southeast Florida Big Bend. Our storm surge message has not changed from what we were saying yesterday. This is a potentially significant and life-threatening situation. Again, depending on the exact track is going to will affect a lot of our storm surge values. So if we see a track that's a little further to the west, maybe going west of Panama City Beach, we could see as much as 6 to 8 feet above ground level of surge into Bay and Gulf counties. If it goes a little further to the east, if it goes east of Panama City, then those values there in Bay and Walton may come down. But if it goes further to the east, then we may see some of our higher end surge values, particularly here in the head of Apalachee Bay, where we're still indicating folks need to be prepared for 10 to 12 feet of surge above ground level into the head of Apalachee Bay and about 8 to 10 feet above ground as you go down the southeast Florida Big Bend coast. We are going to see water levels start to increase tonight to what we might call minor flooding along the coast as we go to our high tide times tonight. But our peak water levels are going to be Wednesday afternoon and evening around the time of landfall. Unfortunately, in Apalachee Bay, Wednesday evening, late Wednesday afternoon and evening are near our time of high tide. So we'll continue to watch how that factors in. But again, preparing for these values that we have on the screen include a landfall at the time of high tide. Storm surge warning is in effect for the entire stretch of our coastline from the Okaloosa-Walton County border eastward all the way over through the Suwannee River. I do want to note that we are showing a rather lengthy stretch inland of storm surge risk. This is the area at risk for life-threatening inundation in this shaded area. So this goes well inland into Wakulla, Taylor, Dixie County, and Franklin County. We are going to see surges move up our rivers, and we'll be working with River Forecast Center to kind of better forecast what we might see in portions of Dixie County on the Suwannee River, as well as up the Apalachicola River there into Weewahitska. So again, if you're in the shaded area, there is the danger of life-threatening inundation from storm surge with this system. Rainfall has kind of been revised just a little bit with a slight westward nudge in the track. We've kind of shifted our area of heaviest rainfall to now include kind of the Apalachicola Basin, where we're seeing 7 to 10 inches of rain here from Panama City over to Apalachicola up into Gadsden County in southwestern Georgia. But a very large swath of 5 to 7 inches of rain from South Walton all the way up through Albany. This amount of rain will cause flash flooding, and we do have a flash flood watch in effect for most of our area. River flooding is something that will set up in the days ahead. But generally speaking, 5 to 7 inches of rain is only going to bring our rivers up to the minor flood stage. We've got very low water levels in our rivers at this point, so we don't anticipate significant river flooding with this storm system. Tornado threat continues to be pretty much what we were talking about yesterday, that areas to the right of the track, the areas shaded in yellow, will be at a threat for tornadoes. So beginning Wednesday and continuing into the day on Thursday, there will be a risk for isolated tornadoes as Michael moves through the region. So to summarize, Michael continues to strengthen. It's now a Category 2 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 100 miles an hour. Additional strengthening is likely, and Michael is expected to be a major hurricane later today, later this evening, and landfall on Wednesday. Hurricane warnings have been issued and are in effect for much of the region. Tropical storm warnings surround the hurricane warning area, particularly in south central Georgia. We could see tropical storm conditions begin as early as tonight along the Florida Panhandle coast. Hurricane conditions could begin as early as Wednesday morning along the Florida Panhandle coast. Again, significant life-threatening storm surge is possible with Michael, particularly into Appalachia Bay. Locally heavy rainfall is expected, and this will cause flash flooding across the area beginning on Wednesday. At this point in time, it's all the material that we have to brief. Our next scheduled briefing is going to be today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:30 p.m. Central. We also anticipate that we will have an additional webinar on Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m. I'm going to unmute the lines so that we can have questions. And as a reminder, please mute your lines if you're not asking a question so that we can hear everyone that does have a question on the call. The lines are unmuted. Questions from folks on the line?